Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah,
All right. But you can't see me anymore, huh?
I can't. No, I can see. I see a bunch of pictures.
Okay. You know what? Let me just go ahead. You don't need to see me. That doesn't matter.
You're such a handsome dude, though.
Heck! Flattery will get you everywhere with me. All right. So I've culled it down to. Oh, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. Excellent. So
I'm just in the I'm riding shotgun here.
All right. So this program I'm using is called Photo Mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually reading all the photos directly off of your thumb drive. So it's incredible. Like you can check out the images in real time, like full resolution, instantly. I have no idea how they do it. It's a great program,
Cool.
and I use it for culling. So in about 15 minutes this morning, I culled it down from your, let's see,
Like 900 or something, wasn't it?
700 exact. No, yep, 934,
Uh-huh.
and then I culled it down to 232 photos,
Wow.
and I did that in like 15 minutes because this program's amazing. So, did you want to learn to use Lightroom Classic or Lightroom CC?
Well, whichever one you think I should learn.
All right. So I'm importing right now into Lightroom Classic,
Mm-hmm.
and Lightroom Classic is way more advanced right now. Adobe's trying to move to CC.
I remember you telling. Now I'm looking at. Oh, there we go. I remember you telling me that when I first got it. You told me that because originally I think Adobe kind of got me into CC, and you said no, you want Classic,
Yeah.
and then I have Classic.
Okay. Great. And you have it in. Well, I
Yes.
guess you can. All right. Yeah. I guess you can follow along. Because you don't have double screens like I do. You can only see one of my screens.
Right.
But let's see. But yeah, if you had two screens, you'd be able to edit with me. All right. So, I guess we'll get started then.
Great.
And how much time do you have, by the way? Because I could do this for like 2 or 3 hours.
I probably am gonna need to. I probably got two.
Okay. Good.
I've got a call, then a work call that I'm gonna have to take around then.
All right. Not a problem. I really wanted one, so I said 2 or 3. All right. So this first image,
Look at that bad dude, huh?
right? Is that a hyena?
That's a spotted hyena. That's the Mac Daddy of
The real nasty
hyena.
one. You usually see like the ones that have like missing fur in places,
Yeah.
the really rugged ones. This guy's actually pretty good looking. So I see you're using your aperture priority mode here, and
Uh-huh.
so it picked the exposure for you most of the time. I'm a
Uh-huh.
little sad you reverted out of manual, but and your white balance I think was also on auto. No.
I didn't screw around with white balance.
Alrighty. So this picture is
And the reason I was doing stuff in that mode is because I'm pretty. The problem with manual is I'm slow.
yeah, but you'll get faster with practice.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nobody gets good at manual without being a manual. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. No. It's like nobody gets good at pull-ups without doing pull-ups.
Right, exactly. Like you could do all the kips you want, but you'll never be able to do a strict pull-up if you don't do them. So this photo, as you can see by the histogram down here, is an absolutely perfect exposure, and that's because you're in the shadows. So there's no contrast, there's no shadows to like separate the subject or make it more interesting. It's a pretty flat image, and that's why all your blues, reds, yellows, greens are all in the same exact spot.
Mm-hmm.
So and then you jump over here, and it's outside the shadows already, and you can see now you have a lot more colors to work with over here.
Right.
But let's see. So I chose a bunch of different photos for different examples, and I forgot most of them, but I'm sure we'll figure it out as we go through.
Sure.
But so And there's going to be some critiquing here. I hope you have your thick skin on.
Oh no, I want the critiquing for sure.
Excellent. All right, so I'm looking at these two elephant photos, and the first thing I notice is the elephant's eye is like almost looking directly at you, and that's really good because you have like camera interaction. But something that takes away from a photo a lot, it doesn't ruin a photo, but it can take away from a better photo, is cutting off limbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're missing that trunk there, and then because of the aperture priority, and you focused on this area, your camera decided that it tried to make this 18% gray, which blew out your sky.
Yeah.
So, and as you can see, the sun is coming from behind. So that's usually the case. When the sun's coming from behind, it's difficult to get a colorful sky. You usually want the sun behind you to get all the different colors. So going from this photo to this photo, this one looks really good because he's looking right at you. But then when you look at this one, it looks like he's like squinting and smiling. So that makes it a better photo to me, even though it's a little bit more blown out.
Yeah, and you're right about, now that I look at it, it's so obvious that I shouldn't have cut off the trunk and the legs.
Yeah, I mean, I still do it. It happens. I mean, you're so focused on like nailing that perfect focus on the eyeball, and
that's exactly what I was doing. Yeah, nailing focus on the eyeball.
Yeah, that still happens a lot. So, and this is a really good example of the sun being behind you. So now you can see the shadow over here, so you can see the direction of the light. And you can see this highlight and the shadow right here really shows like the shape of the mane on the zebra. And that's why highlights and shadows are so important. And this photo is a very technically great photo because one, you have this guy looking at you, but two, he's within the rule of thirds, which I'll show you that later in Lightroom. But he's in the rule of thirds, so it's more interesting because he's in this third side and looking at you at the same time. So that makes it a really good photo.
I like this picture, yeah.
Yeah. So in this one is let's see. So it's hard. Sometimes I like kill myself. I'll go back and forth between photos like this for like 20 minutes trying to figure out which one's better, when really they're just both great photos. But here you can see him like dipping his head. Makes it a little bit more interesting, but I don't know. The exposure is a little bit better on this one, but that's not a big deal. Like, we can make both of them look exactly the same in post. Something like this is really nice. Again, you have good shadows. You can see the sun, the shadow right here. The sun's coming from far right.
Yeah.
But so when you have the sun to the far right, you can see all the texture and age in this animal. Because when sun streaks across, you see a lot more detail. So it's all these dimples and everything, that's the sun hitting like the top of the bump and then creating a shadow. Then that's how you get all that texture.
Yeah.
So this is
I cut off the legs again, the feet.
Yeah, and you'll notice that a lot. And I mean, that's just like some famous photographers cut limbs off all the time. If you look at the Prince Harry and Angela Merkel wedding, like the lead photographer cut off limbs everywhere, which is insane because well, they didn't use professional wedding photographers. They used Associated Press photographers to shoot a wedding. What a travesty.
Yeah.
But this I wanted to commend you on because this is a great photo, and I would crop this down something like this. Oh,
yeah.
Shit. So crop it down like this. So now you have his head in the rule of thirds, which again I'll show you that better in Lightroom. But you also have these two sticks here. You have these two sticks, and his eye is right in the middle and looking at you, and you nailed the focus, which is incredible. Like the eye is the sharpest part. And if you crop it like this is a very interesting photo.
Yeah, I like it. I like the way you cropped it.
Yeah, and because of the way this is framed, his eye being between even this third one, so you have this like triangle here, and you have this one over here, it just makes the eye want to jump it directly to this animal's eye, which makes a really good photo. Really good photos are where you control the viewer's eye to where you want it to go.
Yeah. And I like the exposure on this one too. A good,
Yes, this is a great exposure. So again, you can see the sun's coming from the right because this side of the face is completely blacked out. And that gives, you can see all the texture in the horns, and you can see the wrinkles on his neck. You can see that, this goes inwards over here. Like it gives you a much better feeling of actually being there and seeing it with human eyes, which is really good.
Yeah.
You can see the ribs there. That's really good. That is a great exposure. And that it helps a lot because you don't have a sky in the background.
Yeah.
So because everything is has color in it, and you have no blown highlights, because everything has color in it, the camera, it's a lot easier for it to figure out what the exposure should be. It's when you have like a backlit sky and an animal in the shadows that the camera's like, fuck, I don't know what to do here.
Yep. I know that one.
So this wasn't very interesting. It's a pig's butt, warthog's butt. But this one is, because the way he's looking right at the camera with his head up, and it almost looks like he's smiling here. This is a really interesting photo, and it's, even though you cut off the limbs, this is a good use of that. So you pretty much framed it like I would in post crop. I might bring it down just a little bit, but this is a great one. And you nailed that focus again. Let's see. So, I mean, these two are really great photos. Again, this is a great way to come in really close and not worry about cutting off any of the animal, because there's so much emotion in this elephant's eye.
Yeah.
You missed the focus slightly because it's right here on the tusk.
It is on the tusk, yeah.
But this, I mean, your aperture is at 9, so that's not a big deal, because your depth from as far away as you are, your depth of field is a lot more open. Like it goes further back and forth. So that's not a big, that's not a big faux pas. So, I mean, that I would take that all day. This one is absolutely great because, again, you have that sun coming, raking across from the right. And you also have blues in the sky. Like you have 0 blown out highlights. So that's perfect. And just this texture is amazing. We can bring that out a lot in post.
And I like the way he's coming through the grass. It's kind of like he's emerging from the...
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot in your photos, that you had a lot of foreground and background elements with your subject in between, which gives the photo a lot more interest. Like you're able to show depth in the photo. So you have... So like here, you can see all the blurry bushes, and then you can see the sharp bushes. So that automatically tells the brain, like, there's a lot of bushes in between. And then, yeah, this is perfectly framed. You have this like U shape here, framing the most interesting part of the elephant. So this is a beautiful photo. It's really well done.
And you're okay. You're okay with the exposure?
Yeah, the exposure is perfect. You couldn't do a better exposure on this one. And with the elephants, it's going to be really easy because they're gray animals, and cameras love gray. Let's see. So then we have this one. Let's see. So this is a really good exposure. This is a little bit better because you have the eye on the rule of thirds. So let me just show you real quick. Okay. Let's go to this line and bring up the rule of thirds. All right, so this is your thirds guide.
Yeah.
So you have these 9 boxes.
What did you click on to get that, by the way?
So I clicked on this guy over here, the crop overlay tool.
Got it.
And this, like, you should be able to turn this on in your camera too. Like, you should be able to see it before and after you take a photo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you can see between this one, where the lion's eye is a little bit out of focus, but you can see the lion's eye is much more in that third box.
Right.
And then this one, the lion's eye is almost on this third line and a little bit closer to this one, so it's slightly more interesting. And you didn't cut off any part of the animal, so that's a really good close-up crop. And then again, the lion's eye is perfectly on this third, so it's an even better photo, and you pulled out a little bit, which is always a safer, better move. Oh, by the way, I'm recording all of this, the conversation, so I'm gonna send you a video of this whole thing.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, but this is an even better one.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, now that I look at it, pulled back a little bit is actually the better photo, I think. You want to get in tight, but...
Yeah, and it's always safer to pull out. You'll get a little bit more focus, a little bit more depth of field, but you'll also have more room to crop in later if you want. So if I wanted to take this photo and crop it as like this, now we have the lion's eye perfectly on that third, the upper right thirds. And that's exactly where you want eyeballs. It just makes the viewer feel very comfortable looking where you want them to look.
Yep.
So sometimes you'll see, and then there's another theory here. So the lion's looking forward, kind of like anything looking to the right is looking into the future. And then if we flip it, this is looking into the past. So it gives the photo two completely different feelings. And you also see that when I flipped it, your mind sees this picture completely different.
Completely different,
right.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a totally different photo in a different place.
It does.
So you can always play with that and see if you like a photo better when it's flipped.
Yeah, I like the lion looking into the future.
Right? That's what a lion should do. Like an elephant, elephants have amazing memories. They're very docile creatures. They probably look better looking to the past, but an apex predator like a lion probably looks better looking into the future.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, again, pulling out a little bit like this was much better. All right. So a photo like this can be very interesting because one, it's a great exposure. Two, you have a lot going on here, and this I would probably do a really like a crazy aspect ratio crop, kind of like a cinematic crop. That way you're getting, well, let's see. So you also want your horizon on the upper third or the lower third. Again, this is probably better in Lightroom. Here we go. So you have your crop where the most interesting part of the photo is in the upper third, or if you want to get more sky, you can put it on the lower third. But whenever you have the horizon right in the middle, it makes it a much less interesting photo.
Yeah, I get it. Watching you do play with it.
All right. And then this one I was really impressed by. So you have all these like cows looking at you, or I don't know if they're cows, but water buffalo. You have all these water buffaloes looking at you, but this one stands out because the brightest highlights hitting him. Like this is just a really great photo. So you have the highlights hitting him brighter than anyone else, and then he's looking dead into your camera. Like this guy's looking dead at you, and this guy's looking dead at you. But this guy is just like staring into your soul, and this is really good. Like
these are mean fellows too. You don't want to get too close.
I'm sure a lot of these animals are pretty scary. Let's see. Did you see any of them fight while you were out there?
I saw some of the young males, sort of do the equivalent of wrestling. They butt their heads together.
Nice.
And stuff.
That's got to be awesome. I bet you saw a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look, the top of their head is got, a huge cranium dome on it. And that thing is, inches thick of skull, and that's what they use to...
That's awesome. Humans need more of that.
Yeah.
So... But yeah, I love that photo for that reason, because like even though this is dead center in all aspects, it works for this photo. Because it's just, again, with that highlight singling him out, and you have all these other animals looking at you, but this guy's like dead center staring right at you with the brightest highlight on him.
Yeah.
So this photo is fucking fantastic. I love this photo. So again, you have the sun streaking in from the side. It's a little bit behind the lion because you can see the body is in the shadows. But that's good. When you have backlight and you don't have like, bright skies to deal with, you get this beautiful highlight that outlines your subject from the background. So you have this very, very busy background and the lion still stands out perfectly. Like, incredible photo.
Yeah, and he does look like he's looking at a bunch of impalas deciding which one's breakfast.
Let's see if we can let's go back into Lightroom and see if, let's flip this horizontally and see what happens. See, that doesn't make as much sense because he looks sleepy.
Yeah.
So looking into the future, it's not a powerful image. Like, this definitely looks like it feels a lot better to me.
Yeah, I agree with you for some reason.
All right, so moving on.
I like that picture too.
Yeah, this is a fantastic picture. It's probably one of the favorites of all of them. One of my favorites. Get out of my way, cable. All right. So let's go back to here. I'll try and get through these a little bit faster so we can get to the actual editing.
Sure.
So this is a good photo. You nailed it. Like, the lighting's good, but it's just not that interesting until you hit this one. This guy just looks goofy and playful, and it's a little bit soft focus. And like, it looks like the focus is more on the fur here, which is slightly distracting. But the way this guy's looking at him and he's looking back at this guy, and he's got this like goofy, playful face, it's a great photo. So even though it may be slightly technical lacking, it's still a great photo because of the moment you captured.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then this is just cool. So it looks like you focused on his face.
Yeah.
And then he took a couple steps forward and you took the shot, so the face is out of focus here. But again, you have like those streaking highlights coming from the sun on the side, so you see all the shadows over here. It's a decent photo, but it just hurts the eye a little bit to be this out of focus. Let's see. So this one's okay too, but then you get to these ones where the animal's staring right at you, especially this one where you nailed the focus. Like, this one probably would have been a little bit better, but I mean, I miss that focus all the time too. It just happens.
I ran in, would I have been better off with these moving animals to be in continual focus instead of whatever Nikon calls it, single focus? You know what I'm saying?
So it depends on where they're moving. If they're moving from left to right, you can be in single focus all day. But if they're moving towards you or away from you, you want to be in continuous focus, because that's the hardest way to figure out how to... like, it's a lot harder for your camera because they move out of the focal plane a lot faster.
Got it.
So when they're moving... so when I'm shooting a wedding, like when the bride is coming down the aisle, I'm always in continuous focus because every step she's taking, she would be out of focus every single picture.
Right. But if they're moving across the frame, then it's less critical because they're staying in the...
Right, they're still in the focal plane.
Right. Got it.
All right. So this is more of the amazing examples of how you used the foreground and the background to show depth of your subject. So like this bush here, like this piece is almost pointing towards the elephant's eye, and then you have this beautiful thing going on, and it's almost in the thirds. Like, you could probably crop this down a little bit to right here.
Yeah.
And this is just a fantastic photo. Like, that, always having objects in the blurred out objects in the foreground and the background makes a photo way more interesting. Like, this is it's pretty advanced to do that.
Yeah, this one I really like because the stuff that's blurred out in the background, you see other elephants, but they're blurred out a little bit, so it's cool in that regard.
Definitely. And again, this is another really good example of that. Like, you have all this all this foliage in the foreground, and again, you did it again where you have this U shape going on, framing your subject perfectly. Like, this is really advanced stuff, man.
Lucky.
I mean, most photography is luck. But when you do it more and more and you see why you like photos, you'll actually look to do that on purpose in the future.
Sure.
So, and then these are two amazing photos for two different reasons. Like this one's great because you got the trunk, doing this fun like happy elephant look. And then this one's great because he just fluttered out his ears, and you can see like all the veins and texture in there. And it's just perfect. And these baby little tusks. It's like a teenager elephant. Let's see. So this is a good. Okay, so I chose this one. Do you see how this one's like a little hazy and a little bit more blown out?
Yep.
And then so this is 1/400th of a second. This is 1/500th of a second. And what happened was when you focused on this area right here, your camera's like, oh, this is a really dark photo. So it lowered the shutter speed so it can get, more light in there. And then on this one, it looks like you brought it over more to the highlights and you got a more accurate exposure. So again, these are both like, okay, let's see. So if I hit this button, you see these like little tiny red dots.
Yeah.
Those are blown out highlights. You can't recover those. So the best that's very little blown out. You can, especially on a great animal, you can totally, recover that image. But if you go to this one, nope, they're a little bit blown out too.
Tiny little bit.
Yeah. That's about the same amount. That's crazy. Because you can totally see this one's like a little bit darker.
Yeah.
So. But still, I just chose these two for that example on how choosing a shadow area makes your camera want to do. In the future, you'll be in manual and you'll be choosing to do. You'll be choosing this yourself, the exposure. You'll be looking at your bracket. And you'll be like, oh, well, if you focus on this area, you can expose for your highlights and probably get a better image.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I was probably doing here too with some of these pictures was, because the exposure was kind of confusing me, I would fuss with the shutter speed and just to give myself sort of two different exposures.
Oh, that's great. Again, that's something I do all the time too. Like when something really quick is happening and I don't have time to look at the photo and see if the exposure's good, I'll just adjust my I'll bracket it pretty much. So I'll drop my shutter speed 3 clicks or 1 stop. And then I'll raise it 6 clicks, so I have 3 different exposures at low, medium, and high. Let's see. So this is great. I love how they're like walking across, and then I don't know whether to choose between the curled or the straight trunk. Like I guess you just got to choose what you find more interesting. And I think I like this one better because of the way you can see him walking, like his foot's up.
Yeah, I think I like the curled trunk too, because it does look like he's walking. You do get
that sense of motion.
Yeah.
And that would probably look better if we flipped it the other way because he's walking,
Yes.
But because your photo is mostly backlit, like the sun's behind the elephants, as you can tell by like the shadows, it looks like it's to the high right. So there's the elephant's mostly in the shadow, but your sky is like very blown out. And especially when you have green trees and blue sky, if you try and recover that and bring it back, you'll get what's called color aberration, where it'll look really fake if you try and bring the sky back. And I'll show you that later.
And just go back to that one though real quick. There's not much you can do though, right? Because if the sky was not blown out, don't I start to lose the elephants?
So that's a really good question. So if you look over here, you have if I hit on your crushed shadows, you don't have any crushed shadows at all. So there's no blacks that are too black, but you have whites that are too white. So you have room to bring your shutter speed up or your ISO down or something. So look at all this room where you have shadows to play with.
Got it.
So you could have, you know what? Here, I'll just show you right now. Let's go look at this photo. So here we are in Photoshop. If I bring the exposure down to where, so see these blue dots?
Yeah.
Those are crushed blacks now, right? So say this is your base exposure. And then look at the blue
Uh-huh.
sky. We actually recovered all of it. I'm very surprised at that. Your camera has amazing dynamic range.
Yeah.
So if we take the shadow slider right here and we increase it, so we almost uncrushed those blacks. Wow, the dynamic range on your camera is totally different than what I'm used to. Anyways, it's a lot easier to bring blacks back than it is to bring highlights back.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, but crazily, like your camera is amazing at bringing highlights back. All right. These photos are fantastic. Beautiful colors, beautiful exposures, great framing, awesome use of rule. You know, this guy is like right in the middle of the rule of thirds over here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you have this highlight. Again, this guy's a little bit more backlit, but it really works here because it separates, like you see the inner thigh is a little bit brighter, so you can see the two different legs really easily. You have this great highlight along the back, which cuts your subject out from the background, and again with the horns, and down the neck. So it's beautiful.
And I didn't cut the feet off.
And you didn't cut the feet off. So we'll probably crop this one just a little bit, and
Sure.
great photo. Again, amazing photo. Like, so even though your subject is right in the middle, it's still using the rule of thirds because it's more weighted on the right. So it's a asymmetrical photo.
Mm-hmm. And it's great with the depth of field, I think, because because the background is blurred out, you like your eye just goes right to his eyes. I mean, like his ears, his horns.
Yeah. So instead of using your highlights or your rule of thirds to move the viewer's eye to where you want it to look, you're using your depth of field, which is one of my favorite things to do. I love very blurry bokeh backgrounds. So yeah, these are fantastic. And again, you just like nailed them all. That whole series. I mean, this is fantastic. You have all these heads over here that are blurred out, but the guy that's looking at you, like just happy coincidence, but it makes it a great photo because he's staring right at you. He's the closest one. He's in focus, and then all these guys are looking away. So it's a very interesting, great photo, and it doesn't look like you have any blown out highlights anywhere. Little tiny bit there, and that's not even a problem.
Yeah.
Let's see. So you had a lot of photos of this monkey, but I ended up loving this one because he's just chilling there. Right? He's just like straddled across, hanging out, like relaxing. Again, he's relaxing and looking into the past. So if he was doing something like jumping or swinging, it'd be better if he was moving to the right.
Right.
And then here he is looking right back at you, and you have again all these distracting elements in the foreground, but none of them hit the face, so your eye just jumps straight to his face. And you have this beautiful blue background like this. We can do a lot with this one. This is really good. Look, so oh my god, this is a beautiful histogram over here.
Great.
Yeah, so you don't have any blown out highlights, no crushed shadows. That means we can play with all the colors and highlights and shadows and everything. So we get to that. Let's speed up a little bit, see if we can find more examples. Love this. So the reason this photo really works is, one, you see all these flies in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you have this like haze from him moving through the brush, like this dust.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you can see all of this is because of the highlights and shadows, and the sun's coming directly from the across, raking over.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, the orange sun's hitting the dust, making it show up, and then you have the sun in the shadows, like it's creating this light so you can see all the flies. Because if you were backlit or front lit, you wouldn't be able to see these flies as easily. But because it's raking across from the side, you can see them all, and it makes for a very interesting photo. There's a lot going on here that makes this awesome. And by the way, a lot of your photos are really good. Like, it was difficult to narrow down. So you pretty much killed this whole trip. I don't know if you culled it yourself or if you sent me everything you had.
No, I think everything
you
I
did
had.
a fantastic job. I mean, you have way more usable photos than most professionals would have.
Good. Lord knows I had fun doing it.
And that's what it's all about. And there does come a point where you get so obsessed with the camera that it kind of ruins like your vacations and stuff like that. But when you're pulling out the camera every 5 seconds. But I noticed, like, when you're on the tour like this, it's great. And I noticed you didn't use it too much when you were with your family. Like, you just took a few family photos, but you enjoyed their company. And that's like the perfect mixture of using your camera for fun.
I like this one you just went by with the two guys looking at you.
So this is with the sun behind you. And that's why you can see like all these fantastic colors. And there's no shadows that are too distracting. Like you can see by this shadow that the sun's slightly above you and behind you. And that makes for great colors. Like you can see all the blues in this water, all the greens in the grass, all the pinks and oranges in their skin. Like fantastic.
Yeah, it looks like the histogram looks pretty darn good.
It's perfect. You have this like, I don't even see where the blown out highlight is. The histogram shows there's a little bit of blown out highlight, but I don't see it anywhere. And again, blown out highlights aren't the end all be all. And these also, you have like all three of these are just amazing. It's so hard. So because this guy's eyeball is at the top of the third, and this is such a large creature, it's kind of like you're looking down on him. Mm-hmm. So even though he's on the rule of thirds here, this picture makes me feel more comfortable because the eye's a little bit lower, and it's a large creature, so you feel you're on his level instead of looking down on him.
Yeah, no, it does. I get it.
Also, you just have him he's like almost perfectly in line with this bush. So that's a little bit. Actually, it kind of works in this photo because the bush is in the shadows. So kind of works, but it just feels more comfortable with this clean background here.
I agree with you.
But I mean, still a fantastic photo. Let's see. These are all great. This one, we have a lot of blown out highlights, which is, again, not end all be all. But you can see he's in the shadows, or she's in the shadows, because all these shadows are usually blue. Mm-hmm. So, and then it looks like, you're still in the same white balance everywhere, so that's good. So you can see how much warmer it gets when the exposure comes down.
Yeah, and this again was me just taking a couple and changing the exposure just to see.
Yeah, and it looks like your camera even worked against you here, because for this photo, it gave you an exposure compensation of +1. And this photo is like, you nailed it, I'm not even going to touch it. Which is funny, because this one's, you brought your shutter speed up from 250 to 500. So your camera just kind of screwed you over on that one. And you can turn the exposure compensation off if you want, but I think in aperture priority, it's a good thing to have. There's a lot of emotions going on with this girl.
I like that one, the mouth open too.
I mean, that's great. She's just like yawning, but she looks like she's gonna ruin somebody's day.
Yeah, it's a yawn, but it does look like she's
about to destroy somebody.
Yeah.
All right, so these two photos, I love these photos because it gives me a sense of your trip. Which again, if you're shooting to show other people what you're doing, it's good. Like they could see like you're in these Toyotas going through this water. But this one, if this guy wasn't like texting or whatever he's doing, would be great because everybody's really interested and worried about the water. Like it gives a little attention to the photo. And it's a little bit better than this one, which is just, it's a little too wide open. However, if you were to, this gives you the option to crop down and make the photo more interesting rather than this photo where it's just everything's in the center and there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah. That one there gives you a sense of how deep the water gets, though. When you're in the Jeep, that feels kind of like,
Yeah,
whoa.
and you had other photos where it was like coming out of the water, and it was less interesting because of that. So you definitely nailed this at the peak of the interest of this photo. And I'm pretty sure you don't know anybody in this party, but it's pretty heads up of you to turn around and be like, oh, that's, we just drove through that, and I had an emotional response to that. So let me capture someone else doing it so I could tell other people about it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly
It's
right.
awesome. Great heads up. I mean, this is just fucking awesome. I, like you nailed this focus. Again, there's a lot going on. He's framed by everything going on around him. There's nothing you can do about it. Like I still love this photo. I don't even know why. And there's so many things working against this image too. Like he's in the shadows. You have all these, you have this dappling over here and this highlight here. Like it shouldn't even be that great of a photo, but it's something about the look in his eyes and how you nailed the focus that makes this really nice.
Yeah, it does
Right.
work.
And then you can see, even though this is a closer up shot, because he's in the highlights, like it's, he stands out a lot more. But the problem here is his head is highlighted, and no matter what you do with this image, your eyeball wants to go to this highlight instead of his eyes.
Right.
Whereas this one, you're focused on those sad looking eyes.
Yeah.
Let's see. These are both great photos because this one shows your environment that you're in. So it's cool for like remembering and showing people what you went through, and I mean this just looks so awesome to sleep in. And then
That was nice.
and then this is, I mean, this couldn't be a more technically accurate photo if you tried. So you see this little highlight over here?
Mm-hmm.
This is called Rembrandt lighting. So this is the exact perfect lighting that all portrait photographers strive for to get a perfect portrait.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the sun's a little bit high, so the shadows are in our eyes, which you don't want shadows in the eyes, but you're using the sun and not studio light, so it's out of your control. But if you look at all the Rembrandt paintings, he always has this shadow on the right, which is caused by the highlights hitting the nose and causing shadows on the other side of the face.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you nailed the rule of thirds here.
Right, I get
Yeah,
the rule of thirds.
and, I mean, just phenomenal, great photo. Let's see. So these two photos are super similar, and I just wanted to show you there's a bunch of little differences that make turn into a big difference. So the first thing is it looks like you caught them a little off guard. You're just like heads up photo,
Right.
and your wife over here, she's just like what's going on? Like she's still smiling because your wife is wonderful and she's always happy. Your daughter, she's a millennial, so she's quick to react to photos.
Right.
Um, but part of it, so what makes this photo much better is, well, she took off her glasses, which actually makes it
Yep.
a little less interesting, but I know how that goes. But you see how you moved to the right a little here?
Yes, I do.
So what that did was put their faces more on a level focal plane.
Yep.
So you can see like her face is a lot more blurred out here,
Yeah.
and it's more in focus here. So the more you come around to the right, the more both of their faces are going to be on the same focal plane so that they're both, part of the photo. This photo makes it seem like it's more about your daughter,
Yeah.
whereas this photo makes it seem more about the family.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
still an amazing photo. Great photo. Let's see. I just like this photo and chose it. And again, you almost have the Rembrandt lighting here. It's very close and out of your control. But I mean, these are just, you're nailing these. So, all right. So this one's
You gotta
really
have a
good.
picture of the bar.
Yeah. So, but I chose this to show. So you took this photo, which is interesting because you have all these colors with light shining through glass, which is always very eye catching. But because this is the focus of the image, and you're in Africa on safari, and this beautiful, I mean, this is just an insanely amazing trip. I can't even imagine how much you guys had fun. But you don't want the liquor to be the highlight of that memory. And I think you noticed that right away because your very next shot, you pulled out, you leveled off your camera, you got these foreground and these background elements, and this is a much more interesting photo that shows you more elements of the place you were staying at.
Yeah, I thought you're right. You're right. It does.
So, and again, you have some dark shadow weights over here, some bright shadows over here. It's the little yin and yang, and it's overall it really works. You have like the shadows going from a bright highlight gradient to a shadow gradient over here. Great. Little blown out, but we might be able to recover some of this in post.
Yeah.
No, that's a lot blown out. So if you had just brought your exposure up a few clicks, like your shutter speed a few clicks, we could have done a lot. We could have recovered the shadows a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is great. Again, a lot going on here. And oh my god, we're not even halfway through. Let me get to some different examples of photos.
Sure.
Let's see. These are just fantastic with the lights behind you, so you're lighting up your subject and getting the blue sky. I do want to point out, you see this dot here?
Yeah.
And then you see that dot there?
Yeah.
You have dust on your sensor.
Oh. Huh.
So that is really easy to fix. Let me show you. Amazon. What is it called? Gyoto's. Yeah, Gyoto's rocket air blower. All right. So you see this thing right here?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. I'll send the link to you real quick. All you do is you go into your camera settings, and in the wrench menu, like the fixing things in the camera menu.
Yep.
You can. Let's see. So what you can do with that is you do what's called a mirror lockup, and then your sensor's exposed, and you hold your camera where the you hold your camera down so that when you blow the air in, you don't want to ever touch the sensor, but you blow air in and you hold your camera where the sensor's facing the ground so that that dust just falls out. Really easy fix.
Got it. So I'm opening I'm taking the lens off.
Yeah, take the lens off, lock up the mirror, and then just spray some air into the sensor, and that dust will come right off.
Okay. And the camera's sort of facing the ground. I'm blowing up.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
All right. So these two photos are fantastic. I mean, just phenomenal. You know what? We've already been over a lot of that, though. I need to find new things to talk about. Let's see. Oh, so this photo is really good. Yeah, it's a great photo. You zoomed in, cut off her foot. Like, they look even better this close, though. So I might even crop in more. I don't know. It's still a great photo, a great portrait. Oh, this is a great example. So you see how you came down lower on this photo?
Yep.
It makes your daughters taller and more of the focus point of the image.
Yeah, I know. I got down on one knee because I'm tall, and I think this is a much better photo because it shooting from a slightly lower vantage point.
Yes. Or even like level. Like you either want to be level or slightly lower when shooting people.
This looks like I'm standing in a truck or something.
Yeah, it's pretty high up there. You are pretty tall though. And then let's see. So you see you have like a little fuck it. Let's go find something else. We've been over a lot of this. These are all great. Oh my god, this fucking puppy.
Yeah, that's a wild dog.
I know. It's so amazing. Let's see if I can find any other good examples. This is a good example of too much depth of field. So you have this amazing like S-shaped body. This guy's just chilling here. And your focus is right around here. And even though your aperture is at 5.3, you're zoomed in so far that your depth of field isn't much. So you're not focused on the eye. You're focused over here. So this is where the viewer's eye wants to go because it's the sharpest area. And then you're also missing a lot of this body and texture. So this is a bad example of too much depth of field.
And so what so I should have I'm just trying to think what I would have done here. So I should have taken my aperture then.
So there's multiple things you could have done here. One, you could have raised your aperture. So you could have brought it up to like 11 or 12 or 12.3, something like that. That would have helped. And also you could have backed up physically, like moved your body back, or zoomed out. And that'll give you more depth of field, or that'll give you more sharpness throughout the image. Got
it. This was a hard shot because I'm actually in a little boat.
Really?
A little skiff. And so we're, picture where I'm shooting from is I'm sitting in a boat on the water.
Yeah.
This is a tree limb that's sort of coming out into the water, and the boat driver came over and said, "Look, there's a lizard on the log," but it was a hard shot just because it's hard. You can't really move in the boat. You're sitting on in a little skiff.
Yeah, and we're using the 150 to 600 or the 70 to 200 on this, or?
I bet I was using the 70 to 200 on this.
Okay, so you're almost at the 200 range. You're at 185. So if you were to zoom out a little bit, you would have had a little bit more to work with on this one.
Yeah. Yep. I'm always, I'm sure neophytes are always like this. My default is always to zoom in close to things. Yeah. I'm like, oh, there's a lizard. I got to zoom zoom all the way in on it.
Yeah. And I mean, so like with my wedding photos, when I first started, I would always zoom up super close on the bride and groom and get those emotions and stuff. And I love those photos. And then as I started getting, learning a lot more, I found out it was a lot more difficult to learn how to shoot a wide scene and still make it look clean and interesting. But lately I've been finding myself, like I've kind of mastered that, and lately I've been finding myself reverting back to the very close up to get that emotion and more tenseness. And I'm the same way as you. I like that to be a lot closer to the subject like that.
Yeah, my Natalie and Andy always complain that when I take pictures of them, I zoom in on their faces, and they're like, "Dad, stop zooming in on our faces,"
Yeah. But they don't get that, to them, they're worried about how they look overall physically.
Right.
But to you, those are your daughters, and seeing the emotion in their eyes.
Right.
Especially through a lens. It's a very intimate thing. Like, it makes it a lot more personal through a lens.
Yeah.
And so you're taking the photo for you and not for them. And I think they'll appreciate it a lot more in the future.
Sure.
When they look back on it and they're like, 20 years from now, when they're looking into their own eyes, they're like, oh, I'm so glad he took this really close shot.
Right.
So keep doing it for you, man.
All right.
Let's see. All right, let's see what else. Oh, this fucking baby elephant.
Yeah, this guy was so cute.
Yeah.
The guide said this guy was about a month old.
Wow, he's so big for 1 month.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is another really good example of shadows and highlights. So it looks like it's getting pretty close to sunset because you can see how long these shadows are getting.
So this was close to sunset.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
So, I mean, and that's the most beautiful light. Like, look at this. You have this amazing texture from the shadows, but it's also nice and smooth. But what I really want to focus is his eye is in the shadow here. And then this next shot, you have his whole face in the highlight, and then his body in the shadow, and like up here in the shadow. So it creates this perfect focus point for the eye to jump to using highlights.
Yeah.
So this is fantastic, like amazing baby elephant photo, just gorgeous.
And these guys were moving, so I was, trying to grab them because the mom and the females would cluster around this little guy. So and they were moving, so I was trying to get any shot I could of him because he was so cute before he kind of got obscured by the big females.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. And I also want to, here's a new lesson here. Let's see. Oh, it's a little bit blurrier than I thought. But I was going to say, I thought this was a little bit more in focus than it is. But if you had nailed this focus here, or like, it looks like you had a little bit of camera shake or something.
Yeah, and I had my big lens on here, I'm sure.
Yeah, because you're at 480 millimeters in 1/400th of a second. And the rule of thumb is you usually want your shutter speed to be over your focal distance.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I mean, we don't always know where it's at. But if you had gotten the face not blurry, but you had gotten the motion blur in the foot, like you see this dust kicking up and like all this stuff spraying around, but it's a little bit blurry, that makes for a very great action scene. Like you can tell he's running. You know? See, yeah, you can tell he's running, and it just makes it more fun because he's like smiling and being playful in that movement. And again, that might be a better photo, like going to the right, like he's young, looking towards the future, playing around, action. But this is just fantastic, absolutely beautiful. And then this photo is also great because again, you have your animal framed by the plant here, so it makes for a great image. And I think you have a really good eye. Like a lot of these photos, you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, but subconsciously I think you do because you're doing it a lot.
And this was right at dusk, so this is right when I'm losing the sun. This is a few minutes after we saw those elephants. Same day, and the sun's going down, and it's right at the.
Yeah. And you can see when that sun is super low like that, like you see all these birds on the ground. Mm-hmm. You see this gorgeous highlight just on the right because the sun's so low to the horizon.
Right.
And that makes for an amazing photo. Like we might turn this into a really cool silhouette later. It's already pretty silhouette-y. All right, let's move on. Let's see. This was a really good example of this photo just being a really busy scene, like a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And then this photo, your eye jumps straight to this guy. So it's almost the same exact photo, but there's just something going on here that makes your eye jump to this, whereas your eye doesn't know where to go in this photo.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, and it's good to look back and say, what gorgeous bird. Let's see. Yeah. This is when he turned his head, you got his eye more in the sunlight instead of in the shadow. So, like, it's okay to be in the shadows. And again, there's a dust on your sensor. It's okay to be in the shadows. Like, if we flip this looking the other way, we can make that look really cool. We'll see it in editing. These photos of these giraffes is like they were posing for you.
I know. It was like they came out of the brush and started walking towards us, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a great. Every now and then you think, oh, this is going to be a great picture.
Yep. Yeah, and sometimes you think it's going to be great and you get nothing out of it. And this one, you definitely got it. So for this photo, this looks like it's the next day in the morning. 3:26 a.m. That's really early in the morning. No. So normally, I'm against really harsh defined shadows. Mm-hmm. But this actually, it goes in line with his body. It's really cool. So this is a great use of a hard shadow. And again, you have no control over that because, you're at the mercy of the sun in your tour vehicle.
Right.
But that it's just so cool the way this shadow outlines the body. It's this great. I mean, if you were to like have studio lights and shoot that, it would be a very brilliant photo. Oh, this guy is fucking torn up, man.
Yeah.
He's just old. He looks old too. He's just like, really taking my photo again. All right, I think we can get into editing. Oh, wanted to commend you on this amazing shot. Great eye, seeing this guy with a fish in his mouth.
Yeah, and that was off the boat too. I was doing that in the skiff again.
Yeah, it almost looks like you're like laying in the grass getting this photo. Like just so you're on. It makes it a lot more interesting because you're on the bird's level. Like if you're shooting from a standing position down to the ground, it wouldn't look anywhere near as awesome as this. And then yeah, you're zoomed up way on him, so you got that great depth of field, nailed the focus, got this very interesting fish in his mouth. Like awesome. Beautiful dusk shots. We're gonna make something great out of this.
Great.
Yeah. And like I just love all these like birds all around, just amazing. I'm really impressed by this image. So
this was hard. This was Victoria Falls, and it was hard to shoot.
Oh yeah, I can imagine with all that like mist in the air. And so, but what you did here is you have so many elements in the foreground and background. Like this would probably be more interesting if you had focused over here. And maybe you did. Maybe the focus is over here. No, that's out of focus. So, but again, you framed this amazing like gully and all this mist. You framed it with the foreground with a U shape. But you also focused on this action over here, which is really interesting. So you can see the rush of the water. Like, I think for something focusing on the foreground where most of the picture's about the background, I think you did, a really cool job there. And in this photo, you did that. You did focus on the background in this one, it looks like. Or no, it's still the foreground. So this would have been a lot better if all these bushes were like blurred out and you were focused over here. Let's see. I'm gonna show you how we can recover this photo. Like even though we have tons of crushed blacks here, we might be able to recover a lot of this, rather than this photo where we can't recover all these highlights.
Right.
That'll be a great example of that. Let's see. This is another example of like gorgeous backlighting where the sun's behind you. So because the sun's behind you, you're able to get all their skin tones and all the colors, but also a brilliant blue sky.
Yeah.
And this is just fucking fantastic. A bird on the beach, an ostrich on the beach. What? So this is what I was talking about earlier. How here you go. You're on the bird's level, right? So it's more interesting. And here you're just shooting down at the birds, so it's a lot less interesting.
A lot less interesting. I agree. Now that I see it.
Yeah. And I thought this was really great too. So you got all these birds of paradise, I think they're called.
Yeah, that's what they're called.
Yeah. So you got them all, but then you took a second to focus on a beautiful, perfect one and separate it from the background using depth of field. So I think that's a great, because this is really interesting having them all, but then you also focused on the beauty of the individual.
Yeah, that focus I nailed though finally. When you do get the focus right, it is beautiful.
Yes, depth of field. So to create the most depth of field, you want to be as zoomed into the object and as close to the object as possible, and that'll give you more blur in the background. All right, let's jump to. I mean, these are just awesome, and I'm hoping we can dehaze this and make it sharper, because you have that like early morning fog. It looks like. Yeah. Yeah,
this is early morning. That's early morning fog. Exactly what that is.
So you did a fantastic job on these architectural photos, man. I'm just blown away by this. Like you have all these brilliant bright colors and these very intricate like ladders and rails and stuff, and you just like, I think this is the only shot that you got at this angle and nailed it. And then so this is a boring photo. You have this car in the foreground, like this isn't not much going on here.
Right.
And then you corrected right away and took this shot, which is very interesting. And this is another great example of harsh shadows where they work, because you have this beautiful pastel, like perfect canvas. So the shadows look great on there. And then so you could see like it was just, you came up a little bit. It looks like you zoomed in a little bit.
Yep. I walked a little bit too. I walked probably 10 feet.
Oh yeah, yeah. Your zoom changed from 35 millimeters to 105 millimeters, so you walked pretty far away and zoomed
Yeah.
in a lot, which made for a much more interesting photo. So by doing that, you compressed the image a lot more. So when you shoot a wide angle, there's a lot more depth to everything. Like you can see like this
And,
weird angle. Go ahead.
and when I took this picture, I immediately saw the car in it, and I was like, ooh.
Right? Yeah, I mean that's a good eye. You're really good at this. And I'm sure that translates a lot to, from what you do for a living because you have to focus on detail a lot. So yeah, by walking away and zooming in more, you compressed the depth, which made this a lot more interesting.
It is a gorgeous part of Cape Town.
I mean, just absolutely. Let's see. Can't tell which is better of those two. Yeah, these are a little uncomfortably close.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, you're zoomed in at 95 millimeters on a boat. Like you probably could have shown a little bit more of the environment. But
Yeah.
what I wanted to show you for this picture, and I think it's the very last one. So on this very first photo you took, like your daughter here, you can absolutely see like she has the squint in her eyes, her nose a little crunched. Like this is a natural smile because you caught her off guard. And then 1 second later, you can see her face is a lot more relaxed. So now she's thinking about herself.
Right.
So it's great to nail that very first shot, so you get a lot more emotion in people's faces.
Yep. No, I totally see it. Yep.
Yeah. So and again here, like you can see she's squinting a lot more, and she's smiling. And then in this photo, she's kind of like head tilted a little bit, like thinking about her photo.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, and these are just really tiny details that most people don't notice.
Yeah, no, I get it. Now that you point, I wouldn't have noticed it if you hadn't pointed it out, but I do now.
Yeah, and that's mostly a subconscious thing. Let's see. Oh my God, we're already an hour in. Jesus. All right, let's go to the fun stuff, the editing.
Okay.
All right, so I think this is a great image to start with editing.
Okay.
So the very first thing, and a lot of this is going to be personal preference, according to my style that I've developed over the years. But I love very bright, vivid images, or in saturated. Not so much bright, but very saturated. So one of my favorite things to do is take this blue sky and I go into this HSL correction, so your hue, saturation, and luminance. And I like to take the luminance of the blue and drag it down, which gives you more of that color. And then then we can just boost the saturation of that blue. Let's see, that's a little too much. I like the saturation, so I'll probably... And one thing that I do every single time is that any adjustment I make, I'll make the adjustment to where I like it, and then I'll back it off a little bit, because it's usually just too much when you make a ton of adjustments. All right. So another thing that I like to do a lot is to bring up the contrast. So, but you can see that crushes the shadows a little bit. So I like to brighten the shadows. And then also, I love to play with the sliders to see what I can get out of it too.
Right, that's what I do. I play with these things forever.
Yeah, and one really, I love these two sliders, the blacks and the whites. So I love to see what it does to the image. So the whites slider takes everything that's above 50% gray and brightens it. And the black slider does the exact opposite. Like it takes everything below 50% gray and makes it a little bit darker or brighter depending on what you're doing. So, and then from something like this, we have our subject here. So like I said, we should crop this to make it, put them on the rule of thirds and put that horizon below the center. So, and this image, it looks like their horizon. And then do this extreme aspect ratio. So kind of like a panorama look. So instead of keeping the original aspect ratio and trying to crop it, where we're losing some of the animals, I think it's better to do like an extreme aspect ratio, like a 16. What is it? Like a cinematic aspect ratio. What's it called?
I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, it's like 16:9 or something.
Right.
So we do that, and then you can see you have this bright sky, so the animals don't stand out that much. So what I like to do is take this graduated filter. So you just click on that, and then you pick a spot and you slide down. And so what this does is, this image, like any adjustments we make now in this area, it goes down to, up until this point, it's 100% adjustment. And then from here to here, it fades from 100% to 0% adjustment.
Huh.
So if we take our exposure and we bring it down, you can see it affects it 100% up until this point, and then it fades off to here.
Right.
And you can do that, like we can make this colder so that we get more blues. Like if you make it warmer, you lose the blues. So if you make it colder, you get some more of the blues. And now we have a very blue image. So let's make the whole image a little bit warmer. There we go. And then if we look, one thing I hate is yellows. I don't know why, and especially in an African safari, you get tons of them. So I like to come over to the hue. And you can't do this with people because people have yellow tones in their skin. But I like to bring the yellows and turn them to green a little bit. So now we have a much more vibrant, lively foliage.
Yeah.
And then I like to take my greens and make them a little bit bluer. So you can see right here that difference it makes. And then again, made the adjustment, back it off just a little bit so it's not too extreme. And here we can look at our before and our after.
Wow.
And you can see your before and after by hitting the backslash.
Where are you hit? The backslash on your keyboard?
Yep. So now we have, these guys are the brightest part of the image, so your eye goes here a lot faster instead of this blown out sky. We have a lot more color. It's a lot more livelier, like we don't have so many dead leaves.
Right.
And this is where your eyeball wants to go now. It wants to check out all these animals instead of this bright area up here.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start. Oh yeah, let's do this lion. This is gonna be fun. All right. So the first thing I think is this image would benefit from a lot of contrast. So make the shadows a little bit darker, make this highlight brighter. Yeah, let's make those highlights even brighter. And then let's bring our vibrance up. So here's a good example to where the greens don't help us. So let's actually go in and desaturate the greens because this overall image, maybe even the yellows a little bit. There we go. So this overall image, like it looks like, if you go into color theory here, warms are like a much happier, like when you see warms, you feel more comfortable. It's, subconsciously people feel more comfortable about warms. You'll see it in movies. When there's like a sad scene, it'll be all blue tones. And when there's a happy scene, it's all warm, sunny tones. So I think this looks really good, but it's a little too orange. So if we just bring down our saturation a little bit. There we go. So now we have like a sunsetty feeling.
Yeah.
And then I'm taking this tint slider and I'm going to add just a little bit of red. And then, let's see. So this actually might look really cool with like a pretty desaturated. So when you desaturate something like that, you get a film look. It looks a lot more like film. But I like colors a lot.
And where are the sliders that have the actual colors?
So that's down here. So you have your...
Oh, it's just further down.
Yeah, you have your basic adjustments. Then you have your tone curve, which is pretty advanced. And then you have your HSL sliders here.
Yeah. So it's just further down on the screen. I was just,
Yeah.
that's all, yeah.
And then there's things you could do with this curve right here that are really advanced. Like
Yeah, I'm not going to.
like this is called flattening your blacks, where you take all your shadows here and you like uncrush them. So then you get like this film
Yeah.
look. You get this cinematic film look. So if I, this will be like your what's his name? Quentin Tarantino style film look. And then not much to do. I think we could benefit again from the I use this graduated filter a lot more than most people. I think if we bring this in over here and then we take our exposure down just a little bit and do the same on this side. Let's bring that exposure down just a little bit. And then maybe even up here a little bit. There we go. So if we... Can I turn this on and off? There we go. So if we... Alright, so if I turn this on and off, you can see how that creates like a vignette around the subject to highlight that face more and make it stand out more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it looks a little fake. It looks a little fake. So I think I'm going to stretch this out more so the graduated part is less in your face. Same with over here. Let's fade that out a little bit. And then again, if we look at our before and our after, like we get a moodier but warmer, like happier feeling from this image.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go through these images. I want you to stop at something that you really like. And then you tell me when to stop and then how.
Yeah, I'm just looking at them. Maybe go back one. Maybe the... Yeah, maybe this guy.
Alrighty. Let's see what we can do here. So the first thing I notice is like we have this great highlight on his face, but we also have a lot of highlights over here that are distracting to the eye. Like it takes away from the face. So again, I'm going to take that graduated filter. I'm going to slide it over. And I'm just going to bring down the highlights, nothing else. Let's see, and you can see that brings out this like orange over here a little bit, so it might desaturate that a little bit too. Nope, because that desaturates the background. So that's the first thing I did. Like you can see, all that did was make this center area a little bit more of the focus.
Mm-hmm.
Very subtle adjustment,
Yep.
but it makes a big impact. And then, let's see. All right, and then I like to always boost the contrast a little bit. And then this one...
Yeah, boosting the contrast is sharp.
Yeah. So in there's settings you can do automatically in your camera. One thing I would be very wary of is a lot of... What did you call those people? Oh well. A lot of people, when they first get into this, they love this clarity slider, and they overdo it. So you get this like HDR kind of look, but to me it's a dead trend one, and it just looks disgusting. But if you want to make the image sharper, and again this is a really advanced thing that most people don't do, you can come down here to your details tab, and you can boost all this sharpening, and you have this little sample window here, and you can put the sample where you want it. So boost all your sharpening, your detail, your radius, and everything. And then you have this masking over here, which you can't see really what it's doing unless you hold the Alt button. When you hold the Alt button, so right now everything's sharpened. As you slide this masking button, less and less becomes sharpened. So we'll get it down to where like the details of the face are the only thing being sharpened, pretty much, like that. And now this face really stands out. So all we did was sharpen the edges around all these stripes.
Yeah, what was it, the one that you said people did too much of?
The clarity slider, this thing.
Clarity.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. So I like the contrast, but I don't like these shadows too dark, so I want to bring the shadows up just a little bit. But now we're getting this background's too distracting, like it's too intense. So I think I'm gonna bring the contrast down a little bit. Let's see. And then let's bring, you know what, let's experiment. So if you ever want to do black and white, and I am not the king of black and white at all. So you bring your saturation all the way down, but with black and white, you want your shadows to be much brighter and your shadows to be much darker and your highlights to be much brighter for it to be a good black and white photo. So
that's a pretty cool black and white photo because of the, a zebra is a great subject for a black and white photo.
Definitely, especially because like this zebra has a lot of orange in his body, and most people wouldn't recognize with that. Like they're like, why is there orange in a zebra? So we bring this black and white. It looks amazing, and I think because we still have a lot of highlights that are distracting from this beautiful face right here, we go down to this effects tab, and this is called post crop vignetting. So no matter how you crop it, it's still going to apply the same amount of vignetting. Actually, this might be really good right about there. Nah, I'm going to keep this. You framed this pretty well. I'm going to keep it as such. Maybe bring this down just a little bit. So in this post crop vignetting, you just bring this slider to the side. And again, if I hold Alt, you can see, no, not for this one. There you go. So if I hold Alt, you can see how it's affecting it more. Like you have this feathering. I always like want to feather it a lot because you don't want people to notice your vignetting. And then again, if you hold Alt and you move this midpoint slider, you're just affecting the corners a little bit more. And then again with the roundness, hold Alt. And there you go. So now it's barely noticeable. Like anybody that looks at this image will have no idea that you applied a vignette. But if we turn it on and off right here, you can see it just helps you focus on the center of the image a little bit more by taking out the highlights around the edges.
Yeah, it kind of dulls the outside edges a little bit.
Yeah. So I think this makes for a really good black and white. And we can even introduce noise. Where would the noise be? Noise reduction.
It does make for a good black and white.
Yeah, this does. And then we can play with the contrast a little bit. Yeah, definitely contrast is good. All right. So then we have our before, which is a great image on its own. That's actually really good before. And then we have our after. So I would even, now that we're in black and white, I would make this a little bit more intense over here. So I'll bring because I can't bring the highlights down too much, I'll bring the full exposure down a little bit, and then I'll raise the shadows. That way we're taking away more highlights. There we go. Now this part's really standing out. Maybe a little too much. Like it looks a little fake here. So we'll spread this out. There we go. But now that makes my eye want to go here. Like this is the brightest, shiniest part of the whole image. So I don't want to get too advanced on you, but real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick, I would take this adjustment brush so you can do selective adjustments. I'll paint this area, and then I'll bring the highlights down there. Now the face stands out a lot more.
Wow.
So let's see if we can. Yeah, there you go. So that's all I did is I painted that one area and I brought the highlights down so that our our eyeball wants to go straight to this guy's eyeball.
And does it just save Wherever you end up with the sliders, is that what it
Yes.
saves?
And that's the fantastic part about Lightroom is it's a
Uh-huh.
completely non-destructive form of editing. Like you can always revert back to your original file, or you can make adjustments from that file.
Uh-huh.
Or you can even, so if I go over here and I press the copy button
Uh-huh.
and I copy all the adjustments we just made, even this local adjustment, the brush and the
Uh-huh.
graduated filters and all that, if I copy all that and then I reset this because I like this image, you can make a virtual copy. Where is it? There we go. Create virtual copy. So it'll make another copy of this photo. Then I'll just paste those settings. Now you have one of each.
Wow.
Yeah. There's so much you could do with this program. I love Lightroom. All right. Let's move on. Let's see this
I
image.
found a place near me that offers a beginner and intermediate course in Lightroom that I'm going to sign up for.
Oh, nice. I should teach you really complex shit to annoy the instructor. Like, why are you asking these questions? I don't even know these questions. That's good though. And you can learn a lot off of YouTube.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Like well, everything I learned was pretty much from trial and error in Lightroom, but with Photoshop I learned everything off of YouTube. All right.
And what's Photoshop? Oh, Photoshop is
That's insanely advanced.
right.
Like you don't even want to know the things I could do in Photoshop.
Right.
I thought about like showing you something just to get you interested, but that would be a dick move because then you'd be like, "Oh, I could do so much more. Now I have to learn this other thing." But the thing about Photoshop is I've been using it almost every day for 10 years and I still don't know half of what it can do.
Wow.
Yeah, it is there's just a limitless amount of things you can do in there. So, I think this photo this will be difficult to make look good because we have this harsh shadow cutting directly across his face. But it's such a good photo. I think it's worth trying. So the first thing I want to do is see if we can raise these shadows here. There we go. So a little bit less. But once we boost that
That helps bring his face.
yeah. And we can also, if we want to bring it more, we can raise our exposure a little bit. And then bring down the highlights a little bit. So now we have even less of a contrast between this highlight and shadow. So just with that, we've made a big difference. Like look at all the detail from this dark ear that we brought back.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. But what I like how dark this all is over here. So let's just throw a vignette on there real quick and see what that does. Again, a vignette is something I always back off because it's so easy to get heavy-handed with it. Alright, so then we can see our effects of the vignette. Now our subject's way more in focus. It's still a little heavy-handed. Let's try to bring the midpoint back, maybe. Actually, bringing the midpoint in, I think, helped. There we go. And then we have this beautiful orange sun hitting, so let's boost our vibrance a little bit. And that's good. So we have this beautiful orange, but our greens got a little too vibrant, I think, with that. So we should desaturate the greens. So we get that like kind of dead foliage look that he's really in. And maybe even the yellows too. There we go. And then we'll boost the orange a little bit so we get that nice sunset looking colors. And then you can see in the shadows there's always a lot of blues. So we might even desaturate the blues. You see that difference?
Mm-hmm.
So we're just making it a little...
It's subtle, but I see it.
Yeah. So what we're doing there is we're just, you know, even... This is a really orange image, and I just don't think the blues stand there. So we're just increasing the orange by decreasing the blues. We're just making that beautiful sunlight have a little bit more of an impact. Let's see. This picture, it looks like there's a little bit of motion blur here. So we can just add a little bit of clarity, which is like a cheating trick to make it look like it's more in focus. And then I really want to bring out these flies. So let's see if we can go to our sharpening and do that same trick. Like, let's boost all of our sharpening. And then see if we can bring it down to just those flies. There we go. Look. Oh, yeah. They're going to stand out a lot. Look at that. Oh, so much better. So let's see.
That's cool.
Yeah. So if we turn off our detail, it's so subtle. I think we have to zoom in so you can see it. So you see how that gets a lot sharper?
Yeah.
With all the flies?
Wow.
A very subtle detail. Look at, I didn't even notice this leaf sticking out of his back.
Right.
So that brings out those flies a lot more. And then I see this like dust over here. And I really like that. So this is something I do a lot too that I don't think most people do. Is I'll bring in my graduated filter. And then I'll make it oranger to kind of make it look more like that sunlight. And then, let's see, if we lower the contrast, it gives us a dustier look. You know what, maybe we'll just bring that over the top too. Let's see. So if I turn this on and off, all it did was like enhance that dust in the air. Which I think adds a little bit more mood to this photo. And I also think all these shadows over here are a little bit cold too, now that everything else is warmer. So let's add a little bit, use our graduated filter, and add a little bit of warmth into these shadows. There we go. Alright, so let's look at our before and our after.
Wow.
Right? It's a world of difference. And
And the face really came out too.
Right? We just recovered all those shadows. And that's a really good example of, the dynamic range of your camera and how you can, because this shadow here is still a little bit blown out. So you probably could have gone a little bit darker, but I think you did great. And it's really hard with this harsh shadow here because you have this bright highlight and harsh shadow. This is an extreme example of bringing back shadows.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And he does look on the move too.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? He does. He looks like he's hunting. So let's flip this horizontal, and he looks way more intense now.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Oop.
I like him going right.
Yeah, he looks like he's like snarling and stuff now.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, he's better flipped.
I don't even know what the theory is behind that. Like, I know the future and the past thing, but it's just so insane how it makes the image so much different.
Yeah. Yeah, now he looks like he's actually got something in his...
Like in his sights, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, whereas this image is more like he's thinking about that last meal.
Right.
And this one, he's looking at the next meal.
Yep, for sure.
And then, so if we take all the adjustments we made to this image, since this one was shot in a very similar environment, let's copy everything. I don't think we did any brush adjustments, but we'll get rid of that just in case. And then let's paste it to this one and see if we can just get an gratification. And there you go.
And how did you do the paste? Where did you...
So it's just over here, the copy and paste.
Oh, paste. I see it.
Yeah. And then to do that, let's see. Yeah, so you just press copy, you pick all the things you want to copy. Like, unless you're going to be editing something that's on a tripod where everything's in the same exact space, you don't want to do your local brush adjustments.
Okay.
But so we just copied and pasted that. So we got, brought back all those shadows. Made it a lot oranger. So I actually think we should... So we have this graduated filter we did. So if we just back that off a little bit, it's nowhere near as orange. So we still get that nice sunset look. but without like being in your face. So if we bring the highlights up, your focus goes to his neck. So I think it's good to keep him down. And then you can always take your blacks if you want to recover even more shadow. And then
Oh, that's good.
right? And then
Yeah, you really brought his face into.
And here's another tip. So when you use these sliders, they can be really intense. Like it could be really difficult to like make the adjustment you want. So if you place your mouse over the number next to it, you see those arrows that pop up? You can just click and drag to make minor adjustments.
Got it.
So yeah, so we just edited 2 images really well in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, that was much better.
Right? It looks like we barely even touched the highlights, but we really brought the shadows back.
Yeah, and his face really pops now.
Yeah.
Before his face was kind of lost, or half of it was kind of completely in the shadow.
But on the flip side of that, so we can take this adjustment we made. If we bring those shadows down, now your focus goes to this eye, like directly. And then so he's like dead center in the middle of this image. So if we just bring this down, like hardcore, and then up here, now your eye is like jumping right here.
Right.
So again, I
still like when you bring a little bit more of his shadowed face into.
Yeah, bring those shadows up.
Yeah.
And then we can take our blacks and drop those for more contrast. Yeah. So I still think there's too much over here. So let's just crop that down a little bit. Take a little off the top. Take a little off the bottom. There we go. Now there's a little bit less over here taking up the focus when you have that intense eye right there. Look at that. Intense. There's no iris.
Look at the flies right on his eye.
Right? I didn't even see that. Look at all the flies on his face. Holy shit.
Yeah.
These flies are relentless, man. All right. So moving along. Let's see if there's another image you like that you want to... Let's see. This could probably just benefit from a little bit of contrast, a little bit of white adjustment, and a little bit of vibrance. And then we can actually...
Yeah.
And that's maybe all that image needs.
I think we got the grasses too yellow now, though.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So let's take our yellows and desaturate those a little bit, which took away from a lot. So we can boost our orange. And then let's take our blue. We have this beautiful blue back here. And let's just drop our luminance and recover some of that sky. And then boost that blue saturation. So now you can see like this, you see this like white outline up here? Like how the blue is just not jiving well with these trees now?
Right.
That's what happens when you try to recover a really bright highlight. So it looks like we're not going to get away with too much of that.
Got it.
So, and then we can probably... Oh, we're so close to this rule of thirds on his eyeball over here. Let's just bring that over. Right there. Bam.
Perfect.
Right? Makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
And then that was really quick. That was like a 1-minute adjustment.
Really?
And I wouldn't even try and recover these shadows. I think, all these shadows give it a lot of character.
I agree with you. I think the shadows do give it character.
Yeah. But just for shits and giggles, look how black this is. It's definitely a crushed black. No, you're not crushed. But let's just boost our exposure and see how much detail we can bring out of that shadow. Look at that.
Yeah. Wow.
So these spots probably aren't there. That's probably, little dust particles on your sensor that you'll only see because you're trying to really bring back a shadow that we never should be bringing back.
Right.
Let's see. Yeah, just a little bit of highlight there. There we go. That's good to go. Again, this is something that can be like easily like a little less contrast. Bring up the vibrance. So vibrance and saturation are different, where saturation increases all colors, which includes like, see the reds in this guy's face?
Right.
Vibrance only goes for like blues and greens and like some oranges. Like, it doesn't get all the colors. It tries to leave skin tones intact. But this actually looks...
Got it.
But I actually like how the saturation looks better on this, so we can boost the saturation. This looks cold. Was it cold out there?
It was cold in the mornings, and then it would get warm in the afternoons.
Okay, so this looks like it was taken according.
This looks like afternoonish to me.
Yeah, you can see how the shadows are just like dropping straight down on everything.
Right.
So this is probably afternoon. So I would warm this up to make it feel. Maybe increase those shadows. Like, bring up the shadows a little bit. And that way you can get more of a feel of how you felt that day. Maybe even desaturate the blues a little bit, because this just feels like such a cold image with all the... Actually, so we have a lot of purples and blues, and like purplish blues in here. So let's go into the blues, and we'll drag the hue to the left a little bit. And now the image looks a lot warmer. Because we took some of the purples out of the blues and added some more greens to them.
Yeah.
So just that one little adjustment made this image look warmer. Even though we didn't adjust the oranges, we adjusted the blues. And then look at that color in this water. You have so you have like the blue sky reflecting off the water to give you that bright blue. Well, you can see the water is definitely not blue underneath.
Right.
That's cool. I like that contrast in color.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That looks really good.
Yeah, so before and after. We didn't touch the highlights at all. We just increased the shadows to bring back a lot of this detail. And then you're getting some of the splashing here. That's cool.
How did you, when you do that, what are you hitting on to zoom in like that?
I'm just left clicking on my mouse. So
okay.
If your default mouse is this this magnifying glass right here. So you just, wherever you click your mouse is where it's going to zoom in at.
Got it.
All right. Let's see. And then this image, let's bring up those shadows a lot. Let's bring up this vibrance a lot. Add some contrast. And that might be, he still doesn't stand out that much. So this might be a place where I'm going to use my graduated filters hardcore to bring down highlights, just to make this guy stand out a lot more. No, that's still not working. This guy's just in the shadows, man. It's hard to make him really stand out, because he also blends in with all the colors.
Yeah, he does blend in with the colors.
Yeah, this is something I would take into Photoshop and add my own natural highlights in. Like, just like a quick, like, let's take this local brush. So I just like dropped the exposure so I can see what this is actually affecting. So I'll just paint his body in here. And this is something I would not normally do for a photo. Alright, so we have that. So let's increase the highlights on this guy. Bring down shadows, increase exposure.
Oh, now he's popping out.
So that's a good example of how to use a local adjustment, like the adjustment brush here.
Now he looks pretty popped, I think.
Yeah.
And part of what makes him cool. Yeah, no, I can. Hey, can I call you back? Sorry about that.
No worries, man.
Yeah, now, and part of what makes him cool is that he does blend so well into his environment, but I think he pops now.
Yeah, and I think something else that can benefit us. So if we click on our local brush tool, or adjustment brush tool again, if we click on this dot, this selects everything that we adjusted before. Let's see. And then we can increase, I don't like to increase the clarity because that increases contrast a lot. But if we increase sharpness, we can really make him stand out more.
Yeah.
So now he's much sharper than everything around him. Look at that.
Look at that. Great.
So we took this from, like, you can tell, like, he's just so interesting in this subject, but we had to do a lot to bring him out and make him the center point, the focal point.
Yeah, but now he looks great.
Yeah. You know what? Let's even add a little bit of vignette in, feather that off. There we go. And you know, now that we have that, let's see if we can, increase our highlights a little bit. Maybe increase the whites. So when you increase whites, you can get this like really contrasty feel with colors. So I always like to back that off a little bit after I make some adjustments. There we go.
He looks good now.
Yeah, I think he looks really good. That's a great photo, man.
He's just so expressive. I mean, there's just something about his face that's just...
He looks like a philosopher.
Yeah. And he's just so chill, you know, just...
Yep, totally. Look at that. We may have gone a little bit overboard on the sharpening. There we go. Like I said, I like to back everything off.
And look how soft his hair looks and stuff. I mean, it's just...
Definitely. Makes you like... In a good image, you nailed that focus, by the way. That's just like dead nailed there. But a good image will make you feel like you could reach out and touch it.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you feel like you could run your hand right over the top of his head and it would be soft and...
Right? And he looks like he wouldn't mind at all.
No.
Great capture, man. And, you know, because you don't have lights that you can control, you're a prisoner of the natural sunlight. You took the best capture you could get, and then in post-processing, we made it come out to what it could be.
Yeah. No, that looks great. I love that picture now.
And let's see. And then this is a good example of why you don't want to use the local adjustment brush. Oh, here's a good example.
Sure.
Of blown out highlights. So, here's an issue with using the whites tool. So if you have your whites all the way up, your highlights slider it works really weirdly. So let's bring the whites back down, and then we can bring the highlights back down, and then we can increase the exposure of the overall image. And then let's bring the shadows down. No. Yeah, let's bring the shadows everywhere else down. Take our local adjustment brush in this area, and then bring our shadows up. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
now,
great.
yeah, now you can see those gorgeous eyes of his. They're so sad.
That's amazing. Wow.
So here's our before and our after.
Yeah. Amazing.
Look at his eyes are almost black in this, and then look at the
Yeah.
gorgeous color in his eyes after some
Yeah,
editing.
that's amazing. Really good.
It is. It's so... All right. Well, I know you have to get to work, and I think we've done a lot here.
Oh, we've done a lot. Yeah, no, this has been great.
Is there anything else you'd like to do before going, or?
No, this has been great.
Awesome.